little rain over there today.
Yeah.
We've been
Some rain.
couple rain 3 days. Give it a chance to dry out a little bit. Especially on my house. I'm 16 feet from the woods from the east, so, and then by the time the sun gets up, it's all, my house shades it, so I don't get sunlight back there. So you up for the whole summer?
I go home the end of September.
Early September?
End, the very end.
Yeah.
Basically, I think it's either September 30th or October 1st, one of those 2 dates.
By that time, things will be closed up pretty much. Usually up north this weekend's kind of the end of summer for doing things. Parks closed, swimming pools closed, schools open. You say you're near Virginia Beach.
Mhm.
You should be there now when the beach is open.
I can't take the heat.
Jump in the water.
Yes, well, from the city of Virginia Beach city line, a couple miles. So, I'm probably a half hour less to the actual, ocean front.
I was only there twice. So you've been having a good week.
Pretty good, busy.
All right, well, let's see if we can do that. Let's see if this works. All right.
So you've been having a good week.
It's only Tuesday.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room to go
Yeah, I
downhill.
said you've been having a good week.
Oh, yeah.
There's also a lot of space to go uphill.
Oh, really? Oh, we should be optimistic. Yeah, I've been busy too, It's been hauling rocks for this pond I built for Sally and for us, and
Did you figure out what was wrong with the pump?
yeah, the first issue was we're connected, and even though I put a clamp around and cranked it as hard as I could, that wouldn't do it because the hose has wire in it, and decided that was just enough of a gap. So I taped it really, really, really well with actually electrical tape because you can stretch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put the clamp as best I could, like between the wire, but still overlap. And that took care of that. So I put it all back together. I got some huge boulders and a lot of stones and put it around. It was really nice. And something was still going wrong. The pond is still going down. So I decided the only thing it was doing was I had it set so it would go over and splash on the rocks and then hopefully go in. Decided that there were some rocks maybe that were hitting, splashing on it was going backward, the water's going backward. And the my plastic sheet, which is the liner, just extends about this far over the top. So I thought, well, that's got to be it. That's why. So I had to take that all apart and put it forward, and I think that took care of that. Yeah, I haven't fixed the chicken coop door yet, though.
Did you figure out the smell with the one hot?
It's getting better. So I don't know. I don't really understand what happened. It was not used.
Is it gas or is it electric?
It's electric. It was not used really for about 5 weeks. And the only thing I can think of is that something stagnant water in there or something. I don't know. Wasn't on, but it's better now. So I'm assuming that's going to get better. The plumbing, the septic tank. So we called Burleson's Plumbing because the Malin, which was going to pump out the septic tank if we could find it, couldn't find the septic tank, even though there's a white, what turns out it's a marker in the yard. So Burleson came out and within 5 minutes he found the septic tank. I don't know why Malin couldn't find it. So I have to dig up half the septic tank, which is 2 feet down. You got to dig up this much because then you got to get the cover off so he can pump it out. And then you run water in the house and wait until it comes clear. If it doesn't come clear, it doesn't come very well, then you know you also got to block it. If it comes well and clear, then you're good and you can put the cover back on and put the dirt back on. So I still have to do that. He's coming Friday, so I'll dig that up Thursday.
Have you put any Riddex down into,
What's that?
Riddex?
No, I think the septic tank just needs plunging.
Well,
It needs.
Riddex will help it while you're waiting.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's working, it's only when you put a lot of extra water down, like the washing machine drains, and then the toilet burbles and other things burble. Yeah. So who knows when that thing was last pumped, if ever. I mean, I don't know. There's no records.
Of course not.
Of course not. We've been there, 6 years? And we certainly haven't pumped it because it was working fine. So let's see, is that all?
I know you had a list of several.
There was a list, yeah, I think there were 5 things.
Jason's watching, taking this all in.
Oh, yeah.
He stepped away. That's just, as you can tell,
Is he sleeping?
no, he went to work on cooking his dinner, I believe.
Yeah, he's offline.
How did he say his dad's doing? He's doing okay.
What's that?
Did he say his dad's doing?
Yeah, he's home. Now surgery, it blows my mind. The surgeries go home the same day.
Yeah.
Knee replacement, hip replacement.
Yeah.
Go home and take care of your own pain. It's really amazing.
Yeah. The insurance companies are, going to squeeze that last little.
I guess they really do. They don't want you in the hospital. There's only a couple things that seem to require hospitalization, and one of them is abdominal surgery, which I've had twice. And that seems to require something like that.
But the rehabs, they sure like you for 2 weeks. That 2 weeks that when I had my knee done, that evening, they didn't tell me anything. All of a sudden, they came and said, "You're out." I didn't have anyone home or
Oh my
anything,
gosh.
So, yeah, my brother just had his hip done.
Oh, yeah?
About a couple of weeks ago. They're giving him 12 weeks of rehab.
Well,
And he's getting around driving and everything.
And
It's ridiculous.
it's on your insurance companies. Yeah.
I don't know, they would pay 12 weeks for, if he can walk and drive and do.
Yeah, he probably must have needed it. Hey, Chris.
Hi, how you doing? Good, how you doing? Getting ready for your trip?
Yeah. Mom's not gonna make it. She's exhausted. So.
No, you don't know.
Oh no, she's fine. We had in Cattail, all the ladies play cards and have lunch on Tuesday.
Do
So
they?
we had 15 people at the
Oh,
house.
so this
today.
was a bad day for you
Well,
guys.
it was fine.
Okay. Alright.
So she said she would join by Zoom. So I don't know if you've got a link that you could.
But it's the Pensacola link. I'm
Okay.
assuming she'll figure that out or know that. Yeah, I did not
You might
advertise
want
that.
to,
Yeah, I don't know if I think she just used it from your.
Yeah, I think, yeah, she can certainly join by Zoom, and I think we'll probably have a couple other people by Zoom. So I know Mark and Sherry would definitely be on, I think. We should probably have made some coffee, huh? Guess we can do without it, but what's a church meeting without coffee?
Right. I just-
Is it even official?
Yeah.
1 cup a day is fine. I didn't drink coffee most of my life. And I found out there's something in it that's good for your heart. And then I found out that cream and sugar, especially cream, and I buy that International Delight.
mhm.
And it's probably got 100 calories in a thimble. So I guess it cancels out the good the coffee does. But it tastes good.
Well, they keep changing what's good for you and what's bad for you. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah. Just wait a week and something else will be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you get on, well, anything, and listen to what they say, try and do it. And then like you say, the next week, there'll be something else you're supposed to do. I don't pay much attention to any of it.
I know Sherry said she was coming and, I think Elise and Tommy. Keith, I just put some iced tea in the refrigerator. Yeah, it's sweetened or unsweetened. So you could heat that up too.
Should I get that out?
No, I don't want to, but I'm just saying if you wanted something caffeinated. It's all caffeinated, it's not decaf.
Oh, it's a whole.
Yeah, my brother, that's what he drinks and brought a whole ton and left him with my mom and she doesn't drink anything that's not decaf, so. Every Sunday she's like, oh, I forgot to take it to church, so. Well, so how was your work day, Carol?
been good, busy.
Yeah.
You know, I'll think that I'm done for the day and then my office phone just automatically forwards to my cell phone.
Oh,
And someone will call and say, "Da-da-da-da-da-da." Okay. And of course, you can't always tell, you know, if you don't who it is.
right.
Okay, that's 757, that's Chesapeake. Okay, that could be work.
Oh, boy. And how was your day, John?
Good.
Yeah.
Just doing my- That's typical. Going through some paperwork. I know 6 years ago, I got behind, I keep everything in order. 6 years ago, I got behind and I haven't caught up.
Oh, boy.
Well, what's the hurry, John?
Yeah.
No rush.
Yeah, I'd like to get it done, but it would take a couple of years.
Yeah.
There she is. Hi, Louise. Are you feeling better?
Back on most of the living.
All right. You look good.
It was quite a siege. I don't
Oh.
know if you had any time for it.
Yeah, it sounded like a long haul.
And welcome back. You were gone for a while. Were you
No,
not?
she was here.
Well, you were here.
There was one weekend I went down to my son's, but that was just.
Okay.
No, she's.
You're confusing her with you, if you wish.
Yeah, or you.
Yeah, or with me. I'm the one that was gone a while.
You were gone.
Hello, Sherry.
Yeah.
And Mark. Hi.
Mark's putting stickers on the cars, you know, the registration sticker. He'll be right here.
All righty. We're gonna try to set this up so you have a good view of the whole table.
No worries.
And maybe everyone we'll see how it goes.
No worries. We can imagine.
You can imagine, huh?
We can imagine it.
All right.
You're gonna be there tonight, aren't you? I hear.
She'll be here.
And we're doing.
They still have 6 minutes, Louise.
Yeah.
Oh, relax.
He said you were just.
Did you ever know me keep my mouth shut? No. Get me what's going on. Did you get Molly's email?
And
That's
it's-
a recipe.
Yes.
There's Carol.
So.
Hey, Carol.
She is, well, Mom said, when I said, she goes, Johnson.
No, it's gonna be.
Yeah, because, well, Mom, they asked for it on the same.
We have a gal that we play cards with, and she asked her recipe with Lois, and the recipe is very complicated recipe. First Lois just is one of the most delicious. But Molly wrote back and she said, "Thank you so much for the recipe." Every time it starts out with separate egg whites identified.
Yeah, that's one step too many.
Right.
Two steps too
Is
many.
that Molly Seacrest?
Yes, she did. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because she's just up the road.
Oh my goodness, she did.
She's on tennis court above.
Right. It's like I played with Esther's and she just talks about it. But we just can't believe that we come out of it.
And she doesn't even, I don't think she drinks caffeine.
And she's just,
Yeah.
she had a cup of coffee. I thought, oh, I'm glad that. She was.
Question. Ball Creek Church listening in tonight?
No.
Yeah.
I can't see that. This was thrown together this morning. I have no idea what we. Oh.
And mine is scary.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Hang on here.
Like,
No, no. No, I'm gonna have to do that. I'm gonna come over here into the block.
See, I never knew what that, I mean, it took me a while to know it's white.
Yes, it is.
You can even sit on this.
Too.
I was telling her, this is fine. It's time to get my headphones. And it's nice to.
John?
Yeah.
How's everybody?
Okay.
Sorry, I had to work later than I thought I would have to. Not started yet.
You're not late yet. 2 minutes to go.
2 minutes to go. I prefer not to work that way.
Every now and then, John.
Every now and again.
And we're Betty Ruth and
She said they were coming, but he had late, doctors.
Oh,
So just for my own understanding, we are here because,
I don't know.
okay,
I actually am not sure.
okay.
We'll find out, I guess.
who's
What is
running
our-
the meeting?
What is our thoughts? Why?
John is going to start the meeting and then Sherry's going to run the meeting.
Oh,
And I will feel free to intercede at any point
okay.
and talk at any point, yeah.
Because I was reading the points from the book of discipline that was Tommy brought home. And I thought maybe we were going to cover those.
Which points on this?
Well, there were a whole list of them. I can't list all of them. I think Tommy brought it home. He's in the church bulletin.
Yeah.
On the back, or a separate
that was
page.
just a table.
Was it
There used to
table
be a
of
lot of
contents?
these down here, so I made a bunch up like 2 weeks. Oh, there they are. I think I just passed these out
Okay,
and feel free to read them.
thank you.
And I mean, why are we here? My understanding would be that this is why we're here, or why I thought we were here initially. But somehow that got changed, I think, a little bit. So,
This is why I thought we were here.
yes.
Is that what you thought we were here?
Well, I thought initially
That's
this
what I
was the
thought.
reason, but all of a sudden there seemed to have been a lot of other concerns. But I'm gonna make sure that we do fully understand the parameters of what disaffiliation means.
Okay.
Or leaving the United Methodist Church, yes, regardless of other concerns.
Okay.
So who's with us online?
Mark and Sherry, could you hear us talking, guys, or not?
Yes, we can.
We can
Good.
hear.
All right, good.
And the handout you just gave is a copy of paragraph 2553.
No, it's not really that. It's it's a statement by the United Methodist group on communications, Ministry of Communications, that kind of is a little bit of a historical piece about the issue about human sexuality. I almost thought I had.
Had you sent that?
I almost thought I had.
You probably did. That's it.
Okay.
And it had the note from the district. There's so many.
What is your email again?
SLMAYOTTE@gmail.
Got it. Okay, hold on.
I think that's it.
It was
Yeah, just a minute.
Is it process and information?
It starts off, the United Methodist Church affirms that sexuality is God's gift to all persons. That's how it starts.
It starts off.
Okay,
No.
I'm sending it to you right now.
Okay,
All
thank you
right,
very much.
thank you.
We'll grab it.
Hold on, shoot. All righty.
I'm hearing Betty Ruth cannot join us. It was really a rough day at the cardiologist today, and I think that's where they were, and they had the courts worked on, and at 6 o'clock, they were still in Asheville, and Betty said she's got to stay with Jerry, even if she got home in time, they need to eat. She has to stay with him because if this arm swells, she's got to take him to the hospital.
Okay.
So really need to be remembering them because this
Major prayer concern.
a lot more than what she had anticipated. She thought it was going to be a breeze.
Yeah. Well, that's disappointing and discouraging, and certainly needs our prayers.
I believe it's time to start the meeting. Do we have a word of prayer? Dear God, we do thank you for this privilege and opportunity to come here to meet with each other, and pray you'll watch over us and guide us and give us the knowledge and understanding that you would have us have about this situation, and help us know your will and do your will with our lives. We give you the honor and glory and praise in Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Well, little did I know when I was chosen to be lay member a year and a half ago or whatever, that I would be the contact person between our church and the United Methodist Church concerning the issues that have come up. But I am kind of ironic, but so during this meeting, I'm hoping that we will share information about the United Methodist Church in general and the issues in particular. I'm also hoping that each of you will express your thoughts and feelings about the issues that are important to you and about questions for our church moving forward. I think the most important thing for our church is that we focus on unity. We are not a large enough church to split up and be going in a whole bunch of different directions. And, you know, and for this little church to survive, I hope that we can all agree on enough things that we can hold ourselves together. So, this is not a meeting for you to try to convince other people about the way you think and feel, but just as quickly and simply to say what you think and feel so that we'll all know how everybody thinks and feels about it. Then maybe, you know, down the road, we'll see if we can, you know, keep ourselves all together. So the mission of the United Methodist Church, read it, is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. So to me, that means to love and serve Jesus. And that's the thing that I think binds us as Methodists. So the way the church is structured, I sent out a couple of visual things, but I don't see any way for us to put them online. So I'm just gonna put them on my phone and pass it around. So basically, this structure.
Carol could bring it up on her laptop
Okay.
and just have a screen right there next to you.
All right.
Raise your screen.
That's
I'm
fine.
sorry for interrupting.
So no, you know, I
brought my iPad. So
okay. So you know, the local church is the most significant arena through which disciple making occurs. That's from the Book of Discipline. And under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, it helps people to accept and confess Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and to live out their daily lives in light of their relationship with God also. We are part of a district, and there are several districts within an area and several areas within
several districts within a conference and several conferences within an Episcopal area.
Okay. All right, there's more than one set of vocabulary that gets played around here. But anyway, so you know, there's a geographic component to where our church fits in. But you know, we also are in a kind of a hierarchy, a place of hierarchy. So we send a representative to the annual conference of the district.
Of the conference.
Of the conference. Okay, but the district is in the conference.
Yes.
Okay. And we send a representative to the annual conference, and the annual conference elects delegates to the general and jurisdictional or central conference. It votes on constitutional amendments. It sets ministry priorities and budget for its region, and it's where clergy hold membership. So we get a voice in the annual conference. And then every 4 years, they have a general conference. And that is the only body that speaks as the United Methodist Church. It has 600 to 1,000 members, equally divided among lay and clergy. And it meets every 4 years and defines church membership. It defines powers and duties of all clergy, deaconesses and home missioners, annual central district and church conferences and congregational meetings. And it provides a judicial system for the church. It provides the hymnal and church ritual and establishes boards and commissions for the general work of the church. So my understanding is it is at a general conference that changes to the Book of Discipline can be made. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, the actual issue at hand is LGBTQ, and this has been an issue for the United Methodist Church since 1972. And every 4 years they have a general conference, and some years the traditionalists prevail, and then some years the progressives prevail, and it's gone back and forth and back and forth. And so in 2020, the general conference was postponed because of COVID. And I believe it was set to 2022, but it also got postponed for 2022. So another entity that I didn't mention is the Judicial Council. And it is 9 members elected by the General Conference, and it determines the constitutionality of General Conference actions, views all bishops' decisions of law, and is the final court of appeal in the church's judicial system. So they have the authority to call a special conference, and they had a special conference in 2019. So at that conference, the verbiage that was in the Book of Discipline was strengthened to not allow United Methodist ministers to be actively gay or to provide gay marriages or the church to be used for it. And so that is what's in the Book of Discipline. Well,
That's always been in the Book of Discipline, basically, since 1972. And what was strengthened was the jurisdictional punishment, I think, was actually strengthened. But yeah.
Was that punishment ever enforced?
It depends where you live and who your bishop and who your people are there. It is enforced if there's an issue some places in the country, and some places, especially in the West Coast, it has not been enforced.
So why is that? I mean,
can we just continue and get to the, so, it came out and said, this is our stand on gays. And particularly in the West, there were a lot of bishops that said, we don't agree and we're not going to do it that way. And so, as far as I know, well, there has been very little enforcement of that. Now, let's see here. I don't know if you can see this, or if you can project it.
Here's this gives.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Right. So, we can pass that around, and all the white parts are the areas and districts that have said, we're not gonna do it that way. So this has created a huge disruption in the membership of the United Methodist Church. And so originally, they said that they were going to address all these issues in the conference in 2024. But when they wrote up this 2553, it said that anybody who is separating from the church because of the sexuality issue, it has to be done before the end of 2023. Well, and for that to happen, it has to go to the annual conference by June of 2023, which is not that far away, and so, they, a lot of people got upset about this, and they have formed the Global Methodist Church, and are putting out quite a few videos and quite a bit of information trying to appeal to people in the United Methodist Church to leave the United Methodist Church over this issue and join the Global Methodist Church. Well, but they have raised other issues that have nothing to do with sexuality. Specifically, they have raised, hold on, find my stuff here. They have raised the issue of the Book of Discipline and Enforcement, which I see that as a valid point, They have also said, we don't like being told what to do by the bishops. We want to make our own choices and our own decisions. And then there is the issue of urgency, because of the 2023 deadline and all of the unknowns. So they have also said that where the United Methodist Church is going is not to agree with the Bible. Now, the United Methodist ministers have presented other videos that have said, well, that's ridiculous. That's not true. But I see that there is a bit of a split between what I'll call the inerrant Bible, that every word of the Bible is always true, will always be true, and continuing revelation, where people are saying, Jesus gave us the Holy Spirit, and if serious and prayerful people meet in a conference and make a decision guided by the Holy Spirit, then we think that this is God speaking to us to make changes to the denomination through time. So that is probably the biggest dividing issue, in my opinion. And then the question of property, because when a church becomes the United Methodist Church, they have to deed over all of their properties to the denomination. And this is something that John Wesley started, and it has to do with the highest and best welfare for the denomination, not the individual churches. So to get out of this, it's called a trust agreement. To get out of this trust agreement, you have to go through a very long process and hire lawyers and in order to get your property back. But with 2553, which says that we won't allow certain homosexual commitments to be made on our properties, you could get your property back sooner and much less expense. So that question being raised in these videos has made a lot of discussion here in our church about, you know, where's the United Methodist Church going? You know, do we want to be a part of that? Do we want to go be part of the Global Methodist Church? Do we want to become a community church? You know, and so those are the questions basically that we're going to be discussing tonight. Because, as I said, I think we need unity. I think we need to agree in order to survive, much less flourish. So, I think we've kind of done the LGBTQ history and, you know, about the schism in the church. But since that is the beginning point for this discussion, I would like each of you to tell all of us your thoughts about the LGBTQ.
People do not have to do
No.
Okay, I'm just.
Can I
Really
ask-
not.
can I ask a
Eventually, they
question?
would have to vote.
No. This is not a voting evening, and this is not even an evening to try to convince others to agree with you. This is just to share our thoughts and feelings.
Can we have a stated, I was looking, but I couldn't exactly, there's so much material I read, but exactly what the 2553 states as reasons for dismissal, because that is legally the only, and I do have the legal documentation that has to be signed by the church, I do have that, but that's the only way that we would, the only thing we have to vote on. I mean, the other discussions and things are basically second, as far as they're not giving us other options. Okay, if we decide we disagree with these other parts that you said, which there are a lot of them I do, that still doesn't give, I can't put that in the, we can't put that in the legal agreement to disaffiliate.
Exactly.
The only way can be,
But
I think it's 3 things, and I'd like to have those 3 things clarified specifically.
Have you got that, Andy?
Would you like me to read it? Sure.
Yeah, it's in this, isn't it?
No,
Okay,
I don't think it is.
okay.
2553, disaffiliation of a local church over issues related to human sexuality. Number 1, basis. Because of the current deep conflict within the United Methodist Church around issues of human sexuality, a local church shall have a limited right, under the provisions of this paragraph, to disaffiliate from the denomination for reasons of conscience regarding a change in the requirements and provisions of the Book of Discipline related to the practice of homosexuality or the ordination of marriage of self-avowed practicing homosexuals as resolved and adopted by the 2019 General Conference, or the actions or inactions of its annual conference related to these issues which follow. And then number 2 is a time limit. That has been changed. I've been told, have it on good authority, that you don't need to stick to the 2023 guideline anymore. Decision-making process, 3.
I haven't seen that in writing anywhere, and I want to see it in writing.
That's fine. The church conference shall be conducted in accordance with paragraph 248 and should be held within 120 days after the district superintendent calls for the church conference. In addition to the provision, special attention shall be made to give broad notice to the full professing membership of the local church regarding the time and place of church conference, the purpose and means necessary, including electronic communications. The decision to disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church must be approved by a 2/3 majority vote of the professing members of the local church present at the church conference. There is a process that you go through with the district superintendent and the district. Mark Rawls will be here September 8th. and he will explain all that process as well, if it is the church's decision to disaffiliate. This does go on and talk about that process. Apportionments, the local church shall pay any unpaid apportionments for the 12 months prior to disaffiliation, as well as an additional 12 months of apportionments. That's about $1,800 for this church next year and probably the next year. Property, a disaffiliating local church shall have the right to retain its real and personal, tangible and intangible property. All transfers of property shall be made prior to disaffiliation. All costs for transfer of title or other legal work shall be borne by the disaffiliating local church. There are some conferences in the United Methodist Church that are going beyond this and putting like, you owe us at 20% or 40% of what the church is worth, but this conference is not doing that. It's just going along with this. There are something they call pension liabilities. And it says the local church shall contribute withdrawal liability in amount equal to its pro rata share of any aggregate unfunded pension obligations, the annual conference. I have no idea what that means. Mark said just roughly that would be somewhere between 16 and 18,000 total for this church, but it could be less. So that is basically the disaffiliation agreement.
But what are the specific issues?
The specific issue is whether the church is unhappy with what is printed in the discipline about homosexuality. Now, in other words, some churches are pulling out, or there's a schism, because they want more of a progressive or liberal policy, okay? That would be the case of the Western churches. That's why the bishops and DSs are not prosecuting gay clergy, for instance. So they're saying this is too restrictive. We don't agree with this statement in the discipline. What a lot of other churches are pulling out because they are afraid that this is going to be changed and it'll become more liberal. Shall we use that word? Progressive. More progressive. And so they're pulling out for that reason, and that is the Global Methodist Church. It's kind of ironic that they say they don't want anyone telling them what to do, because you probably can't be a member of the Global Methodist Church unless if you read what they say about their specific guidelines and understanding, very creedal, and it's going to tell you what to do, how to think. So.
And then that's why a lot of churches are saying, I don't want to join another denomination, walk from one Friday to
And that is
another.
another denomination.
I would rather stand on our own feet.
So, I had asked Keith if he could talk a little bit about the differences between community churches and denominations.
Yeah, I can say a few words about that. I was in an interdenominational community church for almost 18 years before I came here. They are an independent church, but they are also a member of the International Council of Community Churches, which is not a denomination. It's simply kind of a supportive organization. You do pay some dues if you can, and you get together at a conference once a year, and they support each other. But they might be very, very, very different. So as an independent church, a community church, whatever you call it, they typically might have people from all backgrounds, from all different denominations, or people that have never had any church affiliation at all. That's actually true of most denominational churches. United Methodist Church also doesn't vary far from that, actually. But that is clearly the case with a community church. They establish their own bylaws, their own guidelines. If they need a new minister, they have to find a new minister. They advertise for it and get submissions of resumes, and then they do interviews, and they hire that minister, come up with the salary and the package, the compensation package. As opposed to the Methodist Church, which, as you know, a district superintendent approaches you eventually and says, well, we have this candidate, see what you think. And you actually do have the right to refuse. But typically it goes through, okay, you get that particular minister. The United Methodist Church does have a hierarchy. Mark Rawls is our district superintendent. He's kind of like my boss, and his boss is sort of like the bishop. And so everything goes back in that direction. We have the Book of Discipline, which we've talked about. And the Book of Discipline is this thick. I've showed it to you. Has resolutions, has theological statements, social principles, everything. Probably most community churches do not have that. They can decide what they want to do. Typically, a community church is at the mercy of the minister. The minister can do typically whatever they want within the guidelines of the church, though they could certainly be fired if they went too far. I was told that I was a minister and I could say whatever I wanted to say. You know, I had full freedom to express my opinions at the last church. So that would be typical of a community church. I think the ministerial situation is maybe a little bit different. If I had wanted to perform marriages of gays at the last church, I would have and I could have. I mean, it would not have been a problem. I mean, some people might have a problem with it, but I still would have had the power to do that. Unless probably that community church has bylaws and guidelines, you know, and they say no, you know. So it's up to the community church to develop what they want to and what they believe and establish their own belief statements. United Methodist churches and all denominational churches have some sort of payment that goes out. And it's typically based in this United Methodist Church, it's based upon your budget. And it's all budget related. Presbyterian Church, for instance, based on membership. So different denominations handle it differently. Like I said, ours is going to be 1,800. It's been going down steadily, by the way, since AJ left. It was much higher then because of his salary and pension and health income.
And also the degree, and, you know, when he came to us, he was basically just it was pretty low on the totem pole, and he continued his
Local
education,
pastor.
but he was a full time. But, you know, every year as he got different.
Well, I know when he first came, he couldn't perform marriages. He couldn't perform communion.
It's almost like he was a deacon, but it
Okay.
was just a little bit hot. And so as he increased in that position, our apportionments went up, and with him being full time, it was quite a bit.
Yeah. We could say a lot about that, but we won't.
Yeah.
But the point is that then it takes 3 years because it's an average of the last 3 years. So that's why it's taken so long to get down to where it is now, where it will probably stay. It should stay. In this particular United Methodist Church, I've got to tell you, there's really not much difference between the way we function here, whether you're United Methodist Church or whether you're a community church. How often have you seen a DS or someone from the hierarchy here banging on your door telling you what to think? That hasn't happened, and it won't happen. They will not do that. They leave churches pretty much alone. I've never been in a Methodist church where I haven't been left alone. I've never had anyone tell me what to do, what to preach, how to think. At annual conferences, there's differences of opinion. This issue of sexuality has gone back ever since I've been to annual conference, which was first in 1983, maybe 82, can't remember. Comes up every single time, every single year. And there are various opinions on it. And the clergy I know that are gay just sit there. And there are many gay clergy. And they are probably a little tired of just sitting there, I'm guessing. I don't know. So anyhow, the point is that in terms of my ministry, between being a United Methodist minister and a community church minister, very little difference, with the exception that every fall we have to do all this plastic paperwork, which is a pain. And I would love not to do that.
What would be the biggest negative of becoming a community church?
I don't know. I've thought about that a little bit, and I can only come up with some maybes. The United Methodist Church will support the church in any way, shape, and form it can. You are part of its brotherhood, its sisterhood. And if the church has a need, the district superintendent through the church will be here to help out. If the church burns, if the boiler goes and you suddenly need $20,000, you can borrow that or even get a grant from the United Methodist Foundation. So they've got your back. They really do. So that's one thing. Another thing is that maybe calling clergy might be difficult. I don't know. I think in this area, it seems like retired clergy move in. And so maybe it's just a question of knocking on someone's door and inviting them down. I don't know. It's but it might be hard to get clergy because you're not going to pay much and it's going to be very part-time. But I came here because we're yoked with Bald Creek. I mean, both churches were told this is what the salary is, and this, he's here a quarter time, and don't expect much of him. That's kind of the way it was. So you'd have to figure that out with whoever was hired as a minister. You'd make a decision what kind of minister you want, what their theology might be, how much you're willing to pay, how many hours a week, what your expectations are. I think that would be maybe tricky, maybe not. I don't know.
Mostly depends on the attitude of the person you were interviewing, if you were interested.
Yeah.
I can see just someone, your personality, listening to what was expected, then answering, and either make a decision or not. I can see someone with a different personality, no one particular in mind, just deciding that they were not going to do that. Not interested, didn't care, didn't want to, was not going to. That's pretty, as long as they're sincere about it and communicate clearly, that's goes one way or the other quick.
Well,
And that's what I'm hoping that we're going to do here. I do want to explain that because of the easy out 2553, some people have talked about us using 2553 to disaffiliate with the United Methodist Church, regardless of how we feel about sexuality, that we would lie, And so I think it's important for each of us to say what we feel about the sexuality question, because we're going to be dealing with each other. And I think it's
First of all,
better if we start out being clear about, how we feel.
First of all, those that are members are the only ones that can vote.
Right.
So those that are not members here would not have to.
I don't even know.
No, you're not.
No,
No,
That's just what
I have a letter at home.
no. Carol. Sherry and Mark over there. Sherry and Chris now.
Yeah.
And then Jerry's and I. I passed out that list at church one time to everybody that stated the membership.
yeah, Betty Ruth is, Sandy and Danny are.
And Jerry is not.
There's about 13 or 14.
I
Jerry's
might
not.
still be.
Chris is. Yeah.
Yeah. But, this is the
Only because I
membership.
worked in 7 countries in the mission program. They could not let me off that
I
list.
bet.
We do have 2 inactive right now, but then, we really have 4, including James, inactive. But the only one that has not been informed about what's going on is Mary Ann Miller. And
Yeah.
I do. No, she does not email. And anyway, I do have some things I can take to her, and I just have not called her. I'm sorry. The instruction is scheduled.
I talked to her
You did talk to her. How's she doing?
she was getting therapy at the time, but she sounded good. You know, she had some company too.
Okay.
She told me that.
She said she didn't answer the phone.
So since this is the question of the United Methodist Church, would anybody care to help your own personal opinion about how you feel about sexuality in the church?
It's pretty simple, I will, because there's a pretty simple sentence, right? It's the same, will be the same, my level has been the same. It will never change because it's directly out of, as far as I'm concerned, any doubt, you will learn what is causing that doubt in your brain. Statement added that the church does not condone the practice of homosexuality and considers this practice incompatible with Christian teaching. It's pretty simple.
Well, that's what they're disputing, is
That's
that,
what the-
is that sentence and the other sentence in the discipline.
I
That's what
understand.
they're wanting to
Right.
change,
And-
right?
But the,
Some want to change it, not everybody.
Yeah, that's
That's the
because
problem.
it's real. It does not condone that.
all right,
And the practices of teaching Christians will not condone that from
okay,
any level.
thank you, John, for
Okay.
telling your opinion. Anybody else?
In my opinion, it's what it is.
So, may I?
Yeah, but
So so first of all, one of the things we need to decide is whether or not we're at schism, and we even have to consider this. Just because we have an opportunity doesn't mean we have to take it. It doesn't mean we have to disaffiliate. Seeing it, I also believe that using it as a means to an end would be immoral and a lack of integrity. If we feel that we need to disaffiliate for other reasons, then we should, there's a process for that. It's a much longer process that we would be individually thing. We wouldn't take the get out of jail free part, if you will. As far as sexuality goes, I think the statement that exists in the Book of Discipline, while it is not consistent with my own social beliefs as a practicing Christian, it is consistent with my belief and how one should move forward. And I don't have an issue with gay marriage. I don't. I don't have an issue with gay people being practicing homosexuals. I don't have an issue with that at all. And inside of the UMC, what we're saying is those people are fully free to be members of this church. And if you look at the rules in the Book of Discipline, everything, it's very strong about non-discriminatory. It says everyone is welcome to the table. Everyone to the table. However, our clergy, we do not wish for them to be practicing homosexuals because we believe that's inconsistent with Christian teaching. And as part of that, we don't want them to perform gay marriage. But it says nothing whatsoever about gay people not being a member of the church. So my own personal societal beliefs in this matter, I think, are completely consistent with being a member of a UMC church. I don't see a conflict at all. Now, there are other churches, there are other practices to Christianity where people interpret it differently. And that's a different denomination, a different independent church, and things like that. So there are many things available in the world. All this tends to be, if you read about it, it's much more of a US issue in some parts of Europe when I was reading about it. But it is an issue inside of the US, as we all know. It's been hotly debated for quite a while. But I don't see a compelling reason for us to leave the UMC, frankly. I think it's consistent. It provides a basis and a support system for us to practice our faith and to continue to be a Methodist church. I personally don't see a reason why we would need to leave.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Sherry, do you want to share?
I'm not, in hearing him, I'm not sure what he meant by, I don't have an issue with clergy being gay. I don't have an issue with gay marriage. I don't have an issue with that whole area at all. I think God made us all equal and he loves us all, and it's about love for me. We need to love everybody, and that's the way it goes. I too don't see, go ahead.
No.
I don't see, I wasn't there, haven't been there since May, and I don't know what brought all of this to, I still haven't been able to figure out exactly what the issues were in Florida with the conference that made everything go like this. And I don't know that it was about homosexuality, but I'm not certain of that. But my opinion is I don't want to disaffiliate at this time, but I'm open to hearing everybody else's opinion. That's not a decision on my part. That's just where I'm standing today. So I'd like to hear everyone else's thoughts on this.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
I could say that I would welcome gays into the church. However, I don't believe in gay marriage. Everything I've read in the Bible, they said marriage is between a man and a woman, not two men or two women. And I mean, we have to be honest, homosexuality has been around forever and ever. So if that was the intent, it would not say in between a man and a woman.
I think that.
And also, I'd feel uncomfortable having a gay minister or pastor, like I said, I'd welcome them in the church, but having them being my spiritual leader, I would have some issues and concerns with that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I guess the other thing is, right now, it's saying, the Book of Discipline is saying one thing, but that's not being enforced, at least not be consistently enforced.
So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that question.
Consistency is a wonderful thing. Inconsistency is confusing.
All right, but we're going to get to that issue of enforcement in just a minute. So anybody else want to say anything about the sexuality question?
That was my issue. I mean, my question is what Carol brought up, the enforcement. Why are these people, the bishops or whoever, why are they not being held accountable?
Can we hold that discussion for just a minute? Anybody else want to talk about the sexuality issue?
I'm in exactly the same place that Carol's in.
Okay.
I would, of course, I can't even vote, but I believe in what the Bible says.
We're sharing opinions.
And to me, God doesn't change his mind, folks. And that's just the way I see it.
Okay.
I too would be uncomfortable with a gay pastor or minister in the leadership of the church, especially if there were children. And those are my feelings.
Okay. Anybody else?
I believe I don't know the exact scripture, can't think of it, in the Bible that marriage should be between one man and one woman. And like John says, that pretty much, at least I think what you said, pretty much says it as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And that's what the discipline says.
And that's what the discipline right now says.
And I think all of us have gay friends in our families and our acquaintances and in our churches. I mean, the church we came from in Clyde, we had several. I mean, it never was an issue. It never should be. I would disagree with you, Keith. I would have a real hard time if you wanted to perform a gay marriage from our sanctuary. I mean, I would have a very difficult time having a wedding performed in our sanctuary. I mean, weddings to this day they're anywhere and everywhere.
No, you're
And
not
now-
disagreeing with me, because I didn't say
I
that
know,
that
but
was
you said-
something.
You said you would be comfortable performing a wedding.
No, I was speaking generically, that
Okay.
someone minister might be.
Oh, I thought you said you would be comfortable.
There is.
I probably would not
four
perform in the
different things
sanctuary.
going around
Well,
this- the same
Anyway,
time, the
I
same
would be
sentence.
uncomfortable with any pastor performing a gay marriage in our sanctuary.
You know,
It's
how many places in the Bible do you think it talks about homosexuality and marriage between a man and a woman?
very
Forever.
I can
I think,
of
I think there are 5. I've looked it up.
Five, 6, maybe 7
And I think
total.
that they're all in the Old
Maybe
Testament.
7 total. No, they're not all in the Old
Oh,
Testament.
really?
The man and the woman is in Genesis.
Okay.
So anyhow, I just think we got to
Anyway.
keep in mind, this is 2020, and
You are absolutely correct.
you think God's word doesn't change, but our understanding about life and God's word can be transformed. And like you say, we all know gay people. I mean, I don't know we have in my family, which is quite large, extended family, nieces, nephews, there's 5 different people of different strikes. It's just overwhelming sometimes.
If I may, one more time. We all know as adults, as Christians, by reading the Bible, by learning in our youth, way back. Now, I grew up a little differently than most, being born and raised in Key West. I saw things differently. I learned things differently. That's why I got my children out of there when I could do it. Because by 10 years old, I didn't want them learning what I learned or how I learned it. I didn't want that. I thought they were going to have a different life than they had. We know as adults, homosexuality, lesbianism has been around long before the Bible was. And it has stayed. And it's not ever going to leave. The problems facing society today, and when I was a child and growing up in Key West, there was no talk of gay marriage, lesbian marriage. I can remember as 10 years old, a very beautiful English teacher at the middle school, leaving her husband and kids to marry a math teacher that was a female. That didn't happen.
What's your
because-
point here, John?
One point is, this all started, everything started society when gays decided to pass a law where they could legally be married to affect the federal laws. What it did not ever address was church beliefs. The fact that someone is now thinking that because federal law said, yes, Tom, you may marry Billy, or Lori, you may marry Sherry. However, does not say that we're going to change the way the Bible's read.
Well, and that's exactly why the church comes out with its position.
Right.
And the position of the United Methodist Church right now is that we love and accept gays to come and worship and join us in service. And we do not approve of homosexual activity, and we do not want gay clergy. We do not want gay services performed on our properties.
Correct.
So
If-
that is the position of the United Methodist Church now.
If the church did not believe that this was not going to get changed in the next discipline, then they would not have given the churches the legal window of time and way of disaffiliating. If they thought, oh, this is never going to change, then they wouldn't have even given us the opportunity. I think they know it's going to change at this next conference in 2024. And thus they're saying, okay, we got to be a little bit.
No, this was pushed by the Wesleyan Covenant Association, not by the general church, number one.
The Wesleyan Covenant Association that formed the global.
Yes. Number two, if the churches that are disaffiliating were not disaffiliating, then it would not change. There's way more votes with everyone counted together, along with the churches in Africa and Europe, to keep exactly the way it is now. But if they all leave,
Well,
But it might
But
change.
But like you said earlier, this is an issue for somebody just to be back and forth.
Right. What it did is that the conference in 2019 was a special conference to try to say, we're tired of bickering about this. We're sick and tired of it. There's more, not more important things, but there's other things we want to consider. And so this was suggested. And it's like, okay, let's do this. Let's give it a try.
So, so I would like to move on to the next topic unless somebody else has something that they,
It's a topic that the discipline of not following what's
Yes.
written.
The next topic is the book of discipline and the lack of enforcement and, you know, whether we're to be ruled by the bishops or whether the bishops are to be ruled by the conference. So that's the question, and I'd like to hear people's opinions about that.
So what are they saying about that? I mean, what has been said about that? in particular?
There hasn't really been anything, and it's not officially an issue within the United Methodist Church. It's been raised by the people that are forming the Global Methodist.
Well, I think it's an issue because if you've got something in writing and you said, you know, it's gotten voted on and everyone says this is what we as a group agree to,
Right.
then if someone does the complete opposite of what has been agreed on, there should be some type of discipline, some type of,
So,
you know.
Yeah, I really disagree with discipline.
well, so I
Or
would think,
lack thereof.
Punitive problems.
I would think,
Incidentally, I was raised in the Baptist church. If I had a nickel for every Baptist that dances and drinks liquor, I'd be a drinker. I was also a Catholic at one time. There were equal problems amongst people of the Catholic Church. So I think Keith mentioned last week that the book of discipline is a great guideline, but nobody's going to hurt you if you don't do it.
well, except that they do have ways that, you know, bishops can, I don't know what the terminology is, but, you know, if,
Excommunicate is a good word.
you know, if, you know, a minister is in front of the, you know, the church and saying, you know, that Jesus, you know, well, one thing, you know, that Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, you know, doesn't matter. If he's preaching something that is totally and completely un-Methodist, that they can, I don't know, withdraw him for, you know, 6 months while they figure it out. You know, they talked about a preacher dressing in drag and going, you know, and what I've seen is ministers saying, yeah, I think that did happen. And so far, no consequence. So, you know, so the question of no consequence, of no enforcement is something I think could reasonably addressed at a general conference. You know, we don't like that these people did this and nothing happened. You know, we don't like that. And so we would send representatives, you know, and we would talk about that the enforcement is a problem within the United Methodist Church. But, you know, is that something that we want to disaffiliate over now? You know, that's kind of the question.
Well, so
Darius, do you have
if-
something you want to say?
if a minister or a bishop or district superintendent do something that is contrary to the book of discipline, then they can be brought up on charges by the judicial committee. However, that is a very complicated process and somebody has to be willing to do it. And what happens is that they typically have gone against the book of discipline in this particular issue for reasons of their own conscience. So what has happened, and that's what it was on this map that we passed out, what has happened is that these conferences have actually, in their conference sessions, voted on this, like they made it an official part of their conference action.
Their annual conference.
Yes, that they will not be in compliance with a particular statement or particular sentence or a paragraph in the discipline. So in this particular issue, that's what the schism is on here. They voted non-compliance to the book of discipline. So it's kind of like, can they do that? Well,
They did it.
They did it.
They did it.
And it is an official move on the
Mhm.
part of the annual conference. And I don't know how, I mean, I don't know what lawyers or judicial councils do with that kind of stuff. I do not know. But that's what's been happening.
Well,
So
and then-
huge
but it
areas.
it also gets so much more complicated because if you say, okay, this annual conference said, we're not going to go along with that. You know, if the general conference authorizes them to say, well, then you're not a United Methodist Church. Well, then there's the property issues, there's the, the ministerial issues, there's all these other things that are going to come up. So I haven't figured out how to do that yet.
Well, it's slightly alarming when they say, well, we're just not going to, we all agree that we're just not going to follow this. I mean, that really weakens what the book of discipline is about and what's going to happen with the sexuality issue.
Well, and there have been,
Because I think that's going to change as well. Well, we're just not going to do it that way.
yeah, well, and
And
you
this
know,
is the way it's
there-
going to be from now on.
there has been discussion of splitting into 3 denominations,
Oh, right.
progressive,
Traditional.
central and a
Traditional.
traditional, and
Central.
that was kind of what I can figure, that was kind of, being knocked around until people felt the urgency to have to do something and, form Global Methodist Church.
Well, I see membership dropping off drastically if something like that should happen. I see the split in our United Methodist Church already. And I just don't see it growing. A lot of our Methodist churches are not growing, they're dying. And we were told with the district superintendent, the lady that was here, I don't know, what was her name? She basically just told us, prepared us that you're going to be a satellite church with Higgins.
Or your doors are gonna be shut.
Yeah.
She had written a book about it.
She
And she
prepared us for it. And so she basically was telling us, prepare yourself. This could very well happen. It is happening. It happened over in Clyde just recently. They shut down a little church. Now they're a satellite church of Clyde, or they're not even satellite now. But I just see it. It's going to rip the Methodist Church apart, United Methodist Church. I see that happen.
Okay, any other comments about the enforcement? All right, the next topic that I have here is the question of the inerrant Bible or continuing revelation. I've heard from several ministers, well, and the church itself. It says in the Bible, we should not speak. But women now are ordained, and that was due to changes in the book of discipline. So how does the church respond to social change? Given that at least the principles of the Bible are unchanging over time, does that mean that each and every verse and chapter, has to be accepted literally? What are your opinions?
Is that really as part of what we're thinking about doing? That's not really part of it.
Right. Exactly, you're right
and-
about that.
And honestly think that, if we decide to disaffiliate,
Mhm.
when we form our own bylaws and own rules and regulations, because if we do that, we have to have our own rules and regulations. We've got to have our own charter or whatever, because to be able to file for a nonprofit and all of that, it's going to have to, it's processes that's going to have to be done. That can be discussed at that point of the people that are wanting to be part of the church, but it's not really
On the table. right
on the table. That's not a.
The only reason that it's an issue is because it has been raised by the people talking about the Global Methodist Church. And so, for us to be taking a look at what is our church going to do moving forward, I think that it's something that, is useful for us to know how each other feels.
Well, I would like to say one thing about that. First of all, what our church has been in the past, and if you'll take a few minutes and look at some of those pictures and books over there, of all the people that have come in and out of this building, and what it has looked like in the past, and what it looks like now, which is totally different. We are never going to look like either one of those, regardless of what happens, whether we stay with the Methodists or whether or not we leave, because I have a feeling that if we stay with the United Methodist Church, we don't have as many people, I'm sorry, Sherry, in Pensacola that are as open-minded as you and Mark. You're not going to find it. They're more traditional in this valley. And people already see us as a very non-traditional church. And that's not what this valley is all about. And so it's going to be different. Regardless of what happens, it is totally going to be different.
Why do they see this as a non-traditional church? Why do you say that?
We are traditional.
We are about as traditional as you can get.
That's right.
Just because I don't talk salvation and have altered.
So I want to
In what
respond.
ways are we not, in what ways are we not traditional?
Mark, that's what I'm saying.
Sherry and I wish to be part of a traditional church. Okay. So our social beliefs, and I believe that the federal laws that allow gay marriage, I fully support that. And that's the federal laws that are in the nation. Religion and things is separate. I believe in separation of church and state. But when you conflate the two, that's a problem. We don't live in a theocracy, and we don't want to. And I want to be in a traditional church. There's value there. I don't agree with absolutely every single thing that is in the Book of Discipline or absolutely every single thing that is in the Bible, but it is something which provides guidance, and that tension is good for my spiritual growth. So I don't have a problem with us being a traditional church. I don't want us to be misrepresented that way. Our social beliefs and what we support outside of the boundaries of that traditional church is a separate thing.
Great. Thank you.
And so not everyone in the world is a Christian. They're not. Whether they should be or shouldn't is a totally different debate. But within our church, within our practice, within our discipline, within our beliefs and our practices and our journey and walk with Jesus and God, I don't have a problem being in a traditional church at all. If we did, we wouldn't join. So I don't want that to be misrepresented.
But one of the reasons why we fell in love with the church was due to the feeling that we got where there wasn't a lot of judgment, there wasn't a lot of discrimination, there wasn't a lot of anger and angst and division, and it was welcoming, and that you accepted many different ways of looking at Christianity. You weren't like rigid where we felt like we had to. I mean, I grew up in the Laurel Branch Baptist Church right across the street, and that's not who I am. We were Presbyterian for 18 to 20 years, and our church blew up, but we don't want to see that happen here. We've gone through that once with the church that died. So, but we were drawn to you because you were so kind in the fellowship hall, and there was not a whole lot of politics being brought, because I'm sure we're on different planes than most everybody there. And that was good for us, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Nobody's really telling us what you think. You know, we don't know. We know how we think in all of this, but I don't really know how. I know how Carol feels, but the rest of you, it's like I don't know where you're coming down on this very important issue of 2553.
All right, we'll get to that. Thank you both. Anybody else want to say anything about traditionalism or progressiveness?
Well, I think you can be traditional, but you don't have to be formal. And I think that's what's so comfortable in this church is it's not a formal church. It's very casual, but it is traditional. And you know what to expect. You know, when you come here, you know what to expect. Things aren't going to change. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I remember walking
I
in here
would-
and the first thing that I felt in this church from day one was love.
Yep.
Day one.
I
And
think
it never changed.
we're all worried about we're gonna lose that.
Well, I would like to say how I feel about this because, you know, I've tried to keep my opinion out of it as much as I can, but, you know, I know that my beliefs are different from those of many people here, or some people here anyway. And I have felt, when I first started coming here, you know, I looked up on the United Methodist, what the Methodists believe in, you know, and what I understood was that I want to love and serve Jesus. And that's how I feel, you know, that actually I was wrong, but, you know, but it's not too far off. But anyway, and so, you know, I think most of you know that I explored different denominations, different religions, trying to find my path. And, you know, I have felt that I have been able to grow. I did decide that I want to be a Christian, but, you know, there are things about Christianity and about denominations in particular that are difficult for me. And it has helped me for individual Christians to share their beliefs and their prayer life and their, you know, their processes and priorities with me. So that I need that in a church because I know that my beliefs are different. And I think that they call it the big umbrella, you know, that we don't need to be the same. You know, we can worship together. We can, you know, can worship Jesus. We can, you know, be together as Christians and not have to be the same, you know, that we can be different. And in fact, some of you know that early in COVID, I started reading a lot about the early church and Jesus, and come to find out, you know, soon after Paul and Peter went to Rome to form the Roman church, people started arguing about, you know, is Jesus the same as God, or is he just a little lower because he's the Son of God? And they had wars over this. You know, for 200 years they fought. Athanasius and Darius, no, I forget. Anyway, these two priests, and you know, they'd have a conference and it would vote one way, and then the others would go and get more people, you know, and they have another conference and they go back and forth and back and forth. And then, you know, the Romans decided that they wanted to make Christianity the Church of Rome, and they wanted unity. And so they formed the Council of Nicaea, which put together the Bible that we use today. And it was determined in that Jesus and God are the same. And so, you know, the people who didn't believe that were mostly in the East and have gone on to become Muslims, you know. And so you know, I don't understand why people can't be in the same church and be a little bit different.
I think we can be all a little bit different. I mean, okay. We're all different, you know. But there are certain fundamental beliefs that we need to be fairly close on. And you know, and say, okay, this is what we agreed to, and if that's not what you want, then you have other options. But I think we welcome everyone. There's just a few things that we're saying, you know, no gay marriages, no gay preachers. Gays are more than welcome in the church. How we, you know, you read the Bible and how, you know, if we read the same Bible chapter, all of us are going to have a slightly different interpretation of that chapter. No one's going to have the exact same interpretation. That's what makes us, you know, special and individuals. You know, we're not stamped with the same cookie color. But you know, where do we go? And what can?
Did anybody read the Upper Room this morning? Darius and I were sitting on the front porch and we both read it. And I finished, I said, my goodness, this is perfect. This meeting tonight and what we're going to be doing and what we're talking about. Oh, he said, oh, I didn't even see that at all. And so go home and read your Upper Room if you want when you're bringing around here. It was just like, oh, Mom, you know, this is, you know, a little message from God. Thank you, Lord. I needed you to do this. So, proves your point, yes.
Anybody else have anything to say on this? Because the next topic is property.
I have one thing. Keith, I understand your position on the DS, and I've only known 3 since I've been here. But we had an issue that was going on, and I wrote 2 letters to a DS, and he was performing a funeral for one of our family members, and I couldn't believe. And I addressed the second letter to him saying, I would thank you for the funeral for our cousin, da 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 da. Do you know I never heard from him? And then the next DS, we went to a meeting in town, and Darius and I went over there in the rain, and one person from Ball Creek and myself were not on the PPR. So we couldn't even go in the room and sit because it was against the discipline. Oh, my goodness, don't go against the discipline. You know, so I'm sorry. I've got a little problem with the fact of whether or not the DS is really there for us. And that the church has got our backside. When this church burnt down, the people in the community, including all of the Baptists and the non-church people, helped rebuild this church. They wrote a letter, and I have a copy of it, asking the conference for $1,000 so that they could finish paying the bills. And I don't remember if it was for the steeple or what, but it was $1,000. Those people gave up so much. These were farmers. These were poor people. These were not people. Anyway, so this church has never asked the conference for money other than that $1,000.
Okay.
And I personally have had a problem with DSs in the past.
Okay.
Because I'm having, and I don't even know this.
Yeah, all right. Not all DSs are probably great. I don't know.
And, you know, I feel like if he's going to be a DS, I feel like they should have gone around and met every single church and been in every single church and know who their churches are and what they're all about. And Of course, COVID, we haven't, except on the screen. I have met him on the screen. Last.
Yeah, I don't know how many churches each DS has now. I think it's a lot. I don't. Sure.
It seems like I remember, one talking on a video and saying he had something like 70 churches. So.
I think it's about 70 in our district.
Mhm.
I could be wrong.
So,
It's a lot.
yeah, so,
Well,
and I don't know what their
Mhm.
duties
you
are.
can.
Anyway, if we could move on to property, and how people feel about our property.
All right, I'm gonna keep talking. Y'all don't, everybody else is gonna. When Darius got handed the box from Gloria Allen saying, okay, you're taking over the checkbook, there was also a key for the lockbox. What could be in the lockbox? So, he finally figured it out with Sandra Rubin, and they went to the bank, and there's nothing in it. Well, one of my thoughts before we got there was, oh, well, maybe it's a deed to the church. I was raised Southern Baptist, I'm sorry, but I've been Episcopalian, Presbyterian, non-denominational, and I was on staff at Campus Crusade for Christ. So I kind of covered all the bases. So we got to the bank and there's nothing. And Dennis goes, oh my gosh, I think I remember, because he's total 100% off 72 years United Methodist right here. And I'm like, he said, I think the conference has the deed. And Mark explained this to me, the Catholics have the same situation, the Episcopalians, but this was very, very new to me. And I know that this property was donated by a local person. I used to know his name. I've got a lot of documentation about all the things that were given, and you can see the plaques all over this church of the people that donated their money for each of the windows, each of the pews, each of the hymnals, each of the buildings, the pavilion, and everything. So this church to me belongs to the community because it was built by the community. And whether or not all the other denominations do it in trust, that's fine. Let them do however they do. But it really has bothered me a long time that we don't own our building, because I feel like it should be. But that's not the issue.
It's not.
My grandmother was a faithful member, and I'm sure my family helped. And I was in that church, the first church, a lot growing up. But somebody who was in charge, and I'm not sure if it was Darius's family or maybe I was related to, gave that deed to the UMC. They willingly knew that. And that was the deal when they joined the church, and it was good for them. So that was that. I mean, I know we're not the same now, but it just seems like that was the original. I mean, if you never knew about it, I never knew about it. So I don't know. Maybe it wasn't a big deal for the original members, the founding members. I guess it's changed now that it's becoming such an issue.
And the trust deed, I started reading the Book of Discipline here, and I've done contracts a lot in my career, so I read stuff like that sometimes. But the deed being held in trust, the reason that was put forward is because and I don't want to speak for Wesleyanisms, but they're more or less saying we want the church grounds to be used in a manner consistent with the practices of the faith. We do not want it to be used inconsistent with that. The church exists to promote the greatness of God and to promote Jesus, et cetera, et cetera. And people say it much more elegantly than me, but that's why it exists. So that's why they do it. So when a denomination forms in order to help enforce their view of how Christianity should be practiced, and every denomination has different rules. I was born and raised a Catholic, and then when Sherry and I were married, her from a Baptist tradition, I from a Catholic tradition, We met in the middle with Presbyterianism, on from there. Very different traditions. It's a governance system. And that governance system is born of the world and the laws and how we do things. But it is intended to try and affiliate and do things for God. And so that's why the trust deed exists. Now, you don't have to do that, but it is in the interest of a denomination to do that, to further its rules and practices and beliefs and things like that. So that's why it's there. For a community church or independent church, no, they own it. You're on your own. You built the church, you're on your own. You do it the way you want to do it. So there's different ways to do it. That's all. And as far as the property goes, we have to, I believe that we as a church and members need to say, is the fact that the trust deed thing exists, is that an issue for us? What is that? There's how we feel about it, but what is the tangible issue associated with it that is causing us problems? If there is a problem to be solved, let's identify the problem and then address the problem. And if that means we wish to have the property in order to address that problem, then we address the problem. So I'm not saying there isn't a problem. I'm just saying I don't know what the problem with the current relationship is. What is it preventing us from doing and furthering that we wish to do as a church?
Are you worried that they're going to close us down and keep the church?
I think that's one thing that
Every single year since I have been here, down here in this fellowship hall, that has been a discussion of, do you think they'll leave us open again this year? Do you think they'll leave us open again this year? I mean, it has been, I've been here for 2 years, and that is what I hear every single year.
I never brought it up once.
Well,
I mean, we've been pretty viable for the last 5 years.
not
I mean,
in
I'm
membership. We have been dollars.
But we are viable.
We pay our portion.
No, we do more than pay apportionments, Ginny. You're beating that drum like that is the worst thing in the world. We pay all our bills, and we still have excess to give to mission. We are a very viable church. The people in this church participate in the community. To a certain extent, we participate with other churches in the community, maybe not as much as some people would like, and that's probably because I live so far away and so part-time.
And COVID.
COVID put a huge dent in everything and still is. But this church is nowhere near closing its doors. Now, I'm not saying what's going to happen 10 years from now. You know, when Darius is my age.
Yeah, when I get to it.
Yeah.
When you grow up, Darren.
Yeah, when you grow up. But at the moment, we're pretty viable. It would be lovely to have some other people coming and younger families, but who knows what's going to happen? I mean, this is a conservative community, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. Maybe there'll be an influx of diversity. I mean, I do not know. Like I said, I have no crystal ball, and I actually don't have a horse in this race, to tell you the truth.
Well,
My concern is this is a loving church. I agree with everyone that has said that. And that has been my experience from day one also. That is my chief concern, that is what it's about.
Okay, does anybody else want to share about the question of property?
I just wish they'd pay, since they own the church, they'd pay the insurance on it.
Let me say one thing about it that hasn't been said, and that is that part of the problem when a church is owned by the people of the church, and I've seen this in 2 occasions, if the church has to close and then they sell the building, what happens to the money that comes from the sale of that church? That has actually been a huge problem with 2 cases I know, causing incredible conflict. I'm not saying that's the whole reason for the way this is set up as a trustee agency, but I'm saying that it really could create a problem. The Methodist Church is not a problem because no one here owns anything.
Well, with our funds as they are, and we're doing okay, we're holding our own. But if that should come up and we realize they're gonna close us down, we're a big missional church. The money's gonna go wherever we want it to go, right? Who says we can't spend our money how we want to spend it?
But we
You
can.
could, if you own the church, that's
Yeah.
right, that's right.
Okay,
If you were all of one agreement on that, and
Good
then
luck
think,
with that.
gosh, could use 5,000 in the sale of the church, because I probably put 5,000 in the last 10 years, so. People
all
are
right, we're
funny
gonna
that
go
way.
on.
Nightmare City.
It's all the kingdom of God.
So anybody else have anything to say about the property? I will say, I want the church to keep the property. That's how I feel. All right, so we talked about, are there any advantages to being a UMC church? Keith talked about that. How about disadvantages for our church by staying in the UMC? Anybody have anything want to put forward besides apportionments?
Finding somebody to play piano, that's been a problem.
Boy, we miss Sandy.
Don't we?
But I enjoy the music that we're having.
I've
I've enjoyed
I
it
like
too.
the music.
And Keith,
Good
if you, are
selection.
you picking out, are you selecting what we
Yeah.
see? It's wonderful. Really. Very meaningful.
And Janine knows I'm a traditionalist. I love tradition.
I do too.
I don't like change.
I don't either.
I can't take change, but I like the music. I will say
There
that.
we go.
Even the contemporary ones that you come up with, he's like,
Even their version of the.
Yeah, I like to mix it up, right?
Yeah.
Like a little bit of the Mormon Tabernacle
It's second
Choir
chance
and a
stuff.
little bit of guitars and country,
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's all worship, in different ways, and it's really all about the kingdom of God.
I think the only concern we have is what is the future of the United Methodist Church and what are they gonna do in the 2024 conference? And how will that affect us if we do stay in it? Because if I'm hearing everybody correctly, we're fine with the discipline, the way it's written, but it doesn't sound like that's the way that particularly if all the things that
I don't think anyone knows, Janine. I could be wrong about this, but I don't think anyone has any idea what's going to happen
I
in
don't either.
2024. I
Yeah.
really,
They've been doing
Don't.
it since 72 and
But,
they're still kicking it
You
around.
know, but I
I
will
just don't
say
know.
that, if we're still in the United Methodist Church, we have a voice. It may.
What did
And
you
the-
what did you just say?
That if we're still in the United Methodist Church, we haven't disaffiliated,
Uh-huh.
that we have a voice, what
That's true.
happens in 2024.
and
And we could become more active in district policies or in, area policies, and, we could become more active if anybody wanted to do that.
And here's what you can ask Mark, and you can get it in writing if he can do that, is that the deadline I've been told is going to be extended. In other words, because the general conference keeps getting extended, the deadline for decision about disaffiliation is also going to be extended. So that if things go the way you don't want them to go in 2024, you would still have an opportunity to change, apparently. But that is something you'd have to ask him specifically and maybe have some proof on if you would want.
And
So
I
I
would
don't know.
also like to interject that, that it got put off to 2024 because it's the global meeting of the United Methodist Church, and, particularly from China, from Africa, from East Europe, they couldn't get visas.
That's right.
So, so they put it off again to 2024.
Mhm.
So, and it could be put off again, because of COVID,
Very good about
and, so when that happens, pretty much the Supreme Court is kind of in charge. But so,
let me read this last paragraph if I could, Sherry.
sure.
When the next general conference can convene, meaning 2024, hopefully, However, it will address multiple legislative proposals to alter existing church policies, multiple, that'll be before them, in both more exclusive and more inclusive directions. You're going to get that whole wide range of proposals. And to divide or restructure the denomination as a result of differences on these and other issues. It's going to be a madhouse.
Yes.
It really is. And then they underlined this last thing. There is no way to predict at this time how the General Conference may respond to these proposals. And I think that's probably true.
I have a headache, or is that might be too late? It's a little out of character, guys, then we don't get that. Yeah,
It's getting late.
it is getting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
just have a couple more questions.
Okay, okay, because yes, I have to work in the morning, so.
Okay, let me just ask these. As a church, are we in agreement with UMC beliefs, policies, and procedures? Would we, as a church, prefer to spend our appropriations in a different way? Or, as a church, are we comfortable using 2553? And how will what we decide affect our church down the road?
Well, I think we kind of talked about some of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that the issue of the 25-23 is still the issue, and that comes down to a vote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, what's gonna happen next is that the DS is gonna come and, he'd be here to guide us. If I think that what happens is then they have a congregational conference and we have to vote. But I think that there's a discernment process in there before
Yeah,
that,
well,
where
there
we have
should
to
be.
really learn about
Yeah.
what we're doing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So he'll be here a week from Thursday.
yes.
Well, here's a question. I don't think it doesn't pertain, I would guess, but what happens if our church decides, Ball Creek decides to disaffiliate and the other one doesn't? What happens?
So the DS has to figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a possibility.
Sure.
So quickly, question.
Well,
Well,
I don't know about y'all, but this has been interesting, but I mean, and I know Mark and Sherry have been doing their homework, but I have been reading and copying and watching YouTubes, and I don't think I've changed my opinion too much. I don't think I'm particularly interested in the global, but I will mention one thing. One of the people that contacted us was a minister at the Methodist Church that knows our church very, very well and was concerned about what we were going to do. And his suggestion was that we go as a community church, knowing the history of our church and having been a member here and everything else for a period of time. And I tend to respect his opinion in some ways, because it's not like he's got anything to lose. He could tell us either way what to do. I mean, he doesn't have to tell us anything, but he really has been a big, he sent your mom quite a bit of information so that we would know a little bit more and be able to manipulate all these YouTubes and everything else that are going on, because it just gets, I mean, you turn it on and you could go on for hours, which I did one night, and I won't let myself do that again because it kept me up all night long. But this could be endless. This process could go endlessly, and we do have to give it a deadline. We do have to put it in at some point.
So I want to clarify, the person you're talking about in saying that, he actually knows the issues, right? He knows what 2353 is. So he was basically
with the global church.
I'm sorry, what?
He is going to go with the Global Methodist Church.
Oh,
So he sent a lot of videos about Global Methodist Church.
But
But
he
I
also,
don't think he sent anything about United Methodist Church. Did he?
yeah,
He did?
okay, hold on. I just want to clarify. As a minister, he's telling us as a church to use 2553 as the excuse to disaffiliate.
No. He agrees with the reasoning for leaving the Methodist Church. And does not think that our church has a good fit with global, even though that's what he is going to be doing. He felt like our church fits better with the community, being a community church.
So that we would vote, the majority would vote for disaffiliation. And they would vote against the homosexuality thing, correct? That's what would have to happen.
Two-thirds.
2/3.
Two-thirds of the membership.
In order to,
In order to disaffiliate, it would have to be 2/3.
Yeah, I think this is just how everything's gotten so mixed up and confused is we started out with a sexuality question and then we've got all this other stuff.
I would like to see and find out when the date is.
Thanks, John.
To see, because there's a possibility that we may be able to find out and see what is going to happen before we have to make that decision whether to disaffiliate. If it stays the way it is, or if they're going to change it in a drastic manner, and if there's time to act then.
I don't think we can get that answer.
Well, they said they were going to extend it.
See,
Well,
I think they will.
I think they will too.
well, I appreciate everybody coming. I would like to thank the
You did
prayer.
an excellent job of presenting.
You're great, Sherry. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sherry.
A lot of research and yeah, I think it's gonna fall in learning more about the higher end, jurisdictional areas and all of this.
But, I'm sure that the people that made this church have joined the United Methodist Church in all of this, and they like the structure, and they like this, and they like that, and, and went with the United Methodist Church for good reasons, And if we leave the Methodist Church, we're gonna do it for good reasons.
Let's go ahead and close with prayer.
Mother, do thank you for this opportunity to come here and discuss and hopefully learn something that will help us to make our decisions. We ask your guidance in whatever we do, guide us, and your will be done. We thank you for everybody that's helped and for sharing. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, y'all can have fellowship if you would like.
Sherry, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the work you've done. And
You're welcome.
Setting up my thing.
and facilitating.
Right, that's a hard place to
That
be.
takes personal courage to facilitate
Yeah.
in a
Thank
church.
you. It's fun.
And thank you for your comments and your insights as well. Both of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'll be back in touch. Thank you for joining
Yep, we'll see you Sunday.
later. See you Sunday.
Bye.
Bye now.